Welcome to Unfit Statesman with Zach Brown.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. So much to try to cover in such little time. I understand. What's interesting is I started only doing one every other week. It's interesting because so much transpires over the course of 2 weeks. And I just jot down notes, kind of throughout the week of something that I might be interested in talking about on the podcast. And, week by week, it would fill up, and throughout the week, I lose interest and emotion toward different subjects. And by the time by the time that the episode was ready to go, and I had things that I wanted to talk about, there was maybe like at the most, 4 things at the very most. But with 2 weeks, it obviously doubles, right? Because there's double the amount of time to collect potential topics to talk about on a podcast, things that you see in the news, pop culture, whatever. But it seems to compound on itself because the subjects that you are interested in the first week, more about those subjects comes out that second week, so it compounds. I was looking at my list of shit to potentially talk about today, and it was just fucking like 15 different fucking things, right? 15 different things, and like 6 of the topics had like 4 different layers, and it's like it's one of the weird things about the 2-week process is the compounding and just the immense amount of bullshit that happens over the retarded news cycle that we have. And so it's difficult to chop down. I'm making this a very, I know that there's a lot that's happened, right? Trump has 34 felonies. I mean, it's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life as far as like political corruption. This is a persecution, both of the political party in power's opponent. You have the judge presiding over the case, a person who campaigned on the platform of indicting Donald Trump. He's sued Trump like a shit ton of times and just lost. He was a huge contributor to Biden's campaign, so the opposition of Trump's political campaign, and yet he's the judge in Trump's case. Like, I don't really understand how we're just letting this go. I don't give a fuck what happens to Trump, by the way. I don't. If he went to prison, what are you gonna do? Right? Is what it is. I don't care. But this is the persecution of politicals, very similar to the way things are handled in Russia when it comes to political opposition, political opposition, right? This idea that, and it's funny because right now we're in such a big phase of, Russia's the biggest thing we've ever fucking had. And, God forbid we have to get into a hot war with Russia. We definitely don't want that. But if we have to, we fucking will, right? We care so goddamn much about the Ukraine. They're our best friends. They're our best friends, and they've always been our best friends. It's not like they were, it's not like Western Ukraine fought against the Allied powers for the most part in World War II. That's not the case, right? They're our best fucking friends. How is I'm not saying anything about Ukraine because they're amazing and everybody there is good looking and not fat, and they spend their money conservatively, and they're humble, and they go to church, and they believe in God, but they don't care if you don't believe in God because they're very accepting. And is being a gay a sin? Yes, of course, but that's not their domain to judge. They'll leave that to the Lord. Sure, the Peace Corps, the World Peace Corps, has to send out a few memos to the black participants who are going over there to help. That N-words might fly, right? But listen, I mean, all have faults. So far be it from me to humanize Russia in any way, or to compare the United States to Russia in any way, shape, or form. But this is pretty similar to in Russia it's a bit more swift and complete, and it's just a more objective process. But the tactics that are being employed against Donald Trump are clearly, I don't know if they're illegal. I think they're they're unprecedented. I'll say that. I mean, it's insane to think that Donald Trump had sex with a porn star, just the ugliest porn star in the business, right? He found the ugliest fucking porn star in the business, and he fucked her. And he went, fuck, I don't want people knowing about this. And so he's like, I gotta pay her to shut fucking whore mouth, right? And he utilized campaign funds to do so, but he didn't label the itemization of those payments correctly. If I'm understanding this, it's like misleading, the registration of campaign funds or so. I don't know what it is. It's clearly bullshit, right? It's clearly insane that he would have 34 felonies. Which, talk to somebody who followed the case and has a legal background. It sounds like when it comes time for sentencing, he's charged with one felony, because theoretically it's just one charge that was like separated by 34 separate like checks or something. It was like 34 separate payments, but it was all toward one larger transaction, which is what the felony is supposed to be. But Alvin Bragg, who's outside of his fucking skull, he charged him with 34 separate felonies. And he'll appeal, and he'll win, right? There's no way he probably won't win his appeal. But it's funny to think about it in the sense of, Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's campaign funded the Christopher Steele dossier, which was a overt and blatant lie that was used in the foundation of Trump's collusion with Russia case. Hillary's campaign and this is all by the way, they were found guilty of it, and their punishment was $110,000 fine, right? So that's what they paid for it, which is, by the way, the fact that they admitted they did and nothing happened to them other than that $110,000 fine is insane. And the fact that was never covered by the mainstream media is insane. So Hillary Clinton, her campaign funding this clearly made up story from a former MI6 agent that the Justice Department then uses to launch an unprecedented investigation into the sitting president of the United States for treason. Because that's basically what the charge would have been. It would have been treason, right? It would have been colluding with a foreign power to install himself undemocratically as the leader of the United States. Treason. It's obviously amongst, I'm sure, a myriad of other charges. And it was all false. It was all bullshit. And so that's my thoughts. And I wanted to get out of the way because people were gonna, it was the biggest in both weeks that I was garnering and soaking up information, learning, yearning, writing, reading, arithmetic. All that I was doing over the past 2 weeks was, jotting down notes. I don't want to talk. It's just what am I fucking say about it? It's a tragedy from a political standpoint. It shows corruption beyond corruption. The right over the past 2 years have used this term, weaponizing the justice system, weaponizing the Justice Department. And it's true. It's a shame. This should be the biggest. This is the biggest political scandal in fucking the biggest miscarriage of justice in. Well, I shouldn't say that. But this is a clear-cut case of prosecuting and persecuting a political opponent, which I'm not saying hasn't happened, but not to this degree. I mean, this is crazy, and they're doing it right in front of your fucking face. They're saying, suck my dick. And you go, well, I don't want to suck your dick. I don't like your dick. I'm not a huge fan of your dick, buddy. They say, well, you got to suck it anyway. They go, but nowhere in the law does it say that I have to suck your dick. And they go, we give a fuck. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck about whether or not the laws or the Constitution says something about you have to suck my dick. Oh, yeah, we really follow the Constitution these days, don't we? Get on it. Right? And don't do that thing that you fucking torture my tip after I come. I hate that. It's in your face, folks. What do you want me to say? There's nothing I can say about it. It happened. I have a strong feeling that in the Court of Appeals, he's going to win. And that'll be that. Yes, it's a gross sort of, what do you call, what's the archaic word for symbol? I don't know. But whatever that word is, that's what it is of true political corruption. It's not good. As for Trump, like I said, him as a person, I don't give a fuck about. I don't care what happens to him. I'd be a more if he didn't oversee the largest transfer of wealth, or at the very least, put things in motion and objectify. When I say objectify, I don't mean objectify like I objectify women. I mean objectify as in, and I don't think I'm using this correctly, make it objective, that the largest transfer of wealth and the biggest reduction of the purchasing parity of the dollar would happen in the history of American politics and the American economy. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. Maybe it would care a little bit more about him as a person if he didn't fucking do that. Maybe if he didn't rob the American people blind, maybe I'd give a fuck about him. But that's that. Joe Biden is the most, and it's not, again, it's not Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a shell of a man. This is a person who probably, honest to God, he probably has to sit down when he pees. Like, I know me, like when I go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I'm kind of groggy and it's dark, my eyes haven't adjusted, peeing, it's hard. That's a fucking thing you might fucking, right? You might be, the IDF, an Israel missile. It's like we were shooting for air, but we hit a bunch of civilians, We were going for the military base, then we hit the fucking aid workers 8 fucking times. by the way. And I'm not going to I'm not going to get into the Israel-Palestine conflict. You know, you already know about all this shit. I tell you it. Yes, they hit aid workers 8 consecutive fucking times and said all of them were mistakes. And they were. God damn it. You think Netanyahu has malicious intent in Gaza? Please. Please. I won't allow that kind of fucking talk in my apartment. Not with a half-Jew girlfriend fucking doing her makeup in the next room. I'm not going to fucking allow that. But I picked a topic. The point is, I can talk about Israel and Palestine. I'm not going to. Talk about Trump's charges. I'm not going to. Whatever, you know, it's been talked about. I would like to be a bit of a hawk, not a war hawk, but a bit of a hawk. And what do I mean by that? Sight from a bird's eye view. And I'm going to use a central theme of medical advice from the Public Health Administration over the past, well, since 2020, regarding not just COVID. I know what you're going to say. Obviously, you're going to point to that. It's the epitome of a fuck up. It's the epitome of a lie. But there's other things, and I have multiple videos. Some of them are a bit long-winded. I do have, I'm going to warn you, I do have a 5-minute video, but I really wanted, I chose to only do this topic because I think it's important, and I think it will express my opinion on everything happening right now. Better than me just doing what I just did about Trump's felonies or whatever, right? I think that this is going to establish a common theme. And then we expand on that. But it's the atom, right? So just to introduce the topic, I'm getting a little scholarly here. This will be one of my TED Talk episodes, right? Not making fun of fucking crack whores who go into banks and confuse their amount, which at one point at $42, which is now -6, but for whatever reason, throughout the drug use, there was a idea formed and shaped in that crackhead's mind. She had $500,000 in that motherfucker. This is my TED Talk. This is my soapbox, okay? And I'm limited on time. I have to make sure I'm at an hour or just a slightly over. So I want to get to it. So everybody says the government lies. Everybody constantly says that the government and the political apparatus, and when I say the political apparatus, it's a different thing than the government, right? The administrative state, the sort of cronyist, corporatist, fucking talons that have their financial prowess wrapped around the neck of this country. It's not enough to say that they lie, because individuals lie, right? But they're not always bad people. It's like, it doesn't mean, just because an individual lies doesn't mean you should get rid of them, kill them, right? Even if a human being is a liar, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you'd have to fucking kill them or get rid of them or whatever. I mean, obviously, if there's a person who is, telling you perpetual lies, do one of two things: either don't believe what he says and listen, or if you're sucked into what he's saying and he's manipulated you or made you gullible in multiple situations, then you remove yourself from his presence. You make it you make sure you're not in his presence, because it's going to negatively, whatever lie it doesn't matter if it's a lie to pump you up or otherwise. Lies will eventually have somewhat of a negative impact in general, right? And so it's not enough to say that, hey, don't fucking no. Fucking cats. Cats don't lie. They'll make their opinion known based on their behavior. They're not one to cover up what they think about you. It's not enough to say that the government lies, or that the deep state, right, the bureaucracy, these tens of thousands of people that we have no idea who they are, but all of a sudden they're enacting policy that we didn't vote on, or right, their salaries are paid by our tax dollars. We don't fucking know who they are. Like, we don't know what they're doing. And they have the right to not disclose information to the public. It's not enough to call them liars. And the only way that I can describe what I think of them, and I'm going to use the spread of videos that I'm going to play as examples, but it's not enough to say that the government lies. It's more of an adequate analysis to say the same way the atom makes up every single thing in the universe, lying makes up the modern American political system, meaning it cannot function as it functions now without it. It'd be the complete breakdown. If you were to remove the atom from the universe, well, then that's the bye universe, right? I hope you got to experience what you wanted to, but you're not going to exist anymore. It's the foundation of everything. The foundation of the functioning American government and political system are lies. These are their atoms. It's not just, oh, they lie, because people can lie for no reason. No. They subsist on lie. They are fed. This is how the American political system it basically gets their nutrition, is just lies. Lie after lie after fucking lie. And they can't stop. They can't stop. I've heard Dave Smith, who's a libertarian commentator. He's a comedian, which is how I first was introduced to Dave Smith, but I didn't realize he was a libertarian until like 2 years ago. But he's been quoting something recently when he talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict and about basically ending the occupation of the Palestinians by Israelis. But I think it's actually more apt to sort of direct it here. Is the Thomas Jefferson quote goes something like, "We have a wolf by its ear," right? And we've got a grip on it. And this is, okay, now that I'm thinking about it, this is not how it goes. But this is the general aura, right? The theme of what the saying was about. We can't really afford to let it go, because if we let it go, we're fucked. That wolf's going to fucking slash our throats, right? But also our forearms are getting a we're at the brink. We're tired. We don't know if we can even hang on that much longer. I think the saying is, we have a wolf by its ear and we cannot afford to let it go, nor can we, or we can't afford to let it go, nor can we afford to hold on. Something like that, this is very true of the American political system, which is why there's kind of this looming feeling of damnation politically on both sides, by the way, left, right, libertarian. There's a looming feeling of damnation in the country. And it's because lying is the fabric of the modern American political system. And obviously, people don't want to be lied to, so they want to expose the truth. But as the truth gets exposed, then the system itself collapses, which then harms the people that wanted the truth in the first place and lied to decades over decades. It's a bit of a conundrum. And it's a bigger thing than just, oh, politicians lie. Right? Every person's retarded uncle who doesn't have any political viewpoints whatsoever because he hasn't been sober in 16 years will say, well, they're all liars. I don't vote. They're all liars. It's like, okay. Yeah, but it's a lot bigger than that. It's something so much more insidious than that. It's something so much more impactful than that. And so I want to play a series of clips. I'll let you know when the 5-minute one is coming. The first one is for the first two will be well, let's start with Fauci. He testified in front of Congress. I don't even remember. But we can start with him. This is going to be a complex. This is a long. Okay, so I'm giving you. This is a 5-minute. We're going to get out in front of you. Listen. Get it out of the way. This is a compilation of him basically showing, again, either negligence or bold-faced lies. Right. I think everybody listening to this and myself would believe that it's the latter. But even if it is the former, there's no excuse.
Science. Science.
If you're vaccinated, you really don't need to worry about getting it in a way that's serious or transmitting.
That is true. That is correct, Chris. It'll either protect you completely against infection, and the chances are very likely that you'll not be able to transmit it to other people. The risk is extremely low of transmitting it to anybody else. Full stop. Vaccinated people are clearly capable of transmitting the infection. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better. If people are not wearing masks, then maybe we should be mandating it. I myself wear 2 masks.
And I'm quoting you now, at the population level, masks work at the margins, maybe 10%. To hear that they work margins, maybe 10% would make a lot of people ask, okay, then why was I wearing a mask?
You're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. You say that this is going to go away tomorrow like magic when you know that there's no chance it's going to just disappear. We hope this just goes away, burns itself out.
So my question is, why weren't you straight with the American people about this to begin with?
So the bottom line is, it's a guesstimate. I gave a range.
It seemed in that quote to suggest that you were basing your recommendation on polling and what people could accept. Is that not what you meant?
No, I mean, it's a bit of that.
Seeing all of these school closures around the country, is that the right move for children and families?
And I think what's going on right now is generally an appropriate approach. You want to start doing something to socially distance yourself. How dramatic that is, closing schools and doing other things, should be proportionate.
It went too far, that particularly for kids who couldn't go to school except remote, it's forever damaged them.
Well, I don't think it's forever irreparably damaged anyone.
The U.S. Surgeon General has called an urgent public health crisis, a devastating decline in the mental health of kids across the country. According to the CDC, the rates of suicide, self-harm, anxiety, and depression are up among adolescents.
And the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did. Yeah. Because if you look at the people that are politicizing me, there's somebody that all the way over on one level. But there are a lot of other people who look upon me the way they should, as a non-political person that I am.
They're not doing it because they say they don't want to get Republicans, they don't like to be told what to do. And we got to break that.
But now is the time to do what you're told.
Where did this virus come from, do you think, today? Did it come from a lab? Was it man-made?
When you have the animal-human interface and you have animals that come out of the wild that are sold at these open, what they call them, wet markets.
Place of origin was not within the market itself.
No, I don't think you could say that.
There's a report today that another intelligence arm of the U.S. government, this is inside our energy department, has joined the FBI in concluding that COVID began the lab in China.
That the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
We now know that a bat coronavirus was enhanced in a lab. National Institutes of Health acknowledged that it funded research of a virus that was studied at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The experiment, unexpectedly, we're told, made a bat coronavirus more contagious than the original naturally occurring one.
Take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to human, you're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not. What we're talking about now is the gain of function research in studies that increase predominantly the transmissibility as well as pathogenesis and alteration of host range of the virus. Who's lying here, Senator? It is you. I'd have to laugh at that.
Sorry it was long, but I mean, what the fuck? Right? And I'm going to hold my comments into these, there's 3 other videos. It's like 2 minutes each. Just bear with me. This next one's, the voice you'll be hearing is a gentleman by the name of Kary Mullis, who he was the inventor of the PCR test, which is the PCR test is what we were using toward the end of the pandemic, but the majority of tests for COVID were PCR tests. And the inventor of it, Kary Mullis, who you're going to hear on this video, who is no big fan of Fauci, has openly admitted that the PCR tests aren't really something that you can rely on when it comes to positive or negative results of a virus. Okay, so that's kind of where he fits in to this theme. But let's take a listen to his thoughts.
What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? You know, these guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. You know, he doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand medicine. And he should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. You know, those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to, and they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people that pay salary and lie directly into the camera. You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans. Don't get me wrong, but basically, the vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who is really a good scientist. I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem, actually, with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, you know. If Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it, because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina, ask Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance my, because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But I didn't want to do it.
Again, just I'm holding my comments to the end. This next one is a clip from, there's two clips of a statement that was put out by members of the American College of Pediatrics, who are now doing what Europe did 8-9 months ago or a year ago or something, which basically is saying you shouldn't chemically castrate children. Right? You should, if a child is confused about their gender ideology, you know, that's one thing. But mutilating them before they're old enough to consent is a problem, and it's again this you know, rides the roller coaster theme of being lied to. Okay, let's take a listen.
Concern about the physical and mental health effects of the current protocols promoted for the care of children and adolescents in the United States who express discord with biological sex. This declaration was authored by the American College of Pediatricians, but really it was developed from the expertise of hundreds of doctors, researchers, and other healthcare workers and leaders who for years have been sounding the alarm on the harmful protocols that continue to be promoted by the medical organizations in the United States. Despite recent revelations from the leaked WPATH files and the recent release of the final report from the CAS review, these medical organizations have not changed course. So we are calling on these medical organizations, the United States, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Endocrine Society, the Pediatric Endocrine Society, the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry to follow the science and their European colleagues and immediately stop the promotion of social affirmation, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries for children and adolescents who experience distress over their biological sex. In our declaration, we affirm that sex is a dimorphic, innate trait defined in relation to an organism's biological role in reproduction, male and female. This genetic signature is present in every nucleated somatic cell in the body and is not altered by drugs or surgical interventions. Consideration of these innate differences is critical to the practice of good medicine and to the development of sound policy for children and adults alike. Medical decision-making should be based upon an individual's biological sex. It should respect biological reality and the dignity of the person by compassionately addressing the whole person. We are here defying the claims made by these medical organizations in the US. Those of us who are concerned are a minority, and that their protocols are consensus. They are not consensus, and we are speaking in a loud, unified voice. Enough.
Only one more, I promise.
Dysphoria is a diagnosis, whereas transgenderism is an ideology. The natural course of gender dysphoria is desistance
This is a continuation of the speech by the American College of Pediatrics, by the way.
by adulthood, conservatively in 85% of the cases, unless it is affirmed. Gender dysphoria carries with it the overwhelming probability of underlying mental health issues, adverse family dynamics, adverse childhood experiences, and autism spectrum disorder that usually predate the gender dysphoria itself. The probability of both persistence and underlying mental health and other issues is why watchful waiting, coupled with mental health evaluation and counseling for both patient and family, was once and is increasingly again recognized as the standard of care for minors with gender dysphoria. Systematic literature reviews done in the United Kingdom, Sweden, Finland, and Germany show that so-called gender-affirming healthcare is out of step with the evidence base for gender dysphoric youth. Transition affirmation is not proven to be safe or effective long-term. It does not reduce suicides. It does not repair mental health issues or trauma. Minors cannot give truly informed consent. Children have developing and mature brains. Their minds change often. They are prone to risk-taking. They are vulnerable to peer pressure, and they don't grasp long-term consequences. Refusing to provide gender transition procedures, or so-called gender-affirming healthcare, is non-discriminatory and is appropriate professionally and scientifically. Withholding unproven interventions is non-discriminatory, and gender-affirming healthcare has neither been to be safe nor effective nor of more help than harm. Physicians take an oath to do no harm, and gender-affirming healthcare is documented to lead to harm. There are good mental health alternatives to gender-affirming healthcare, which address underlying issues rather than dodging them. Finally, there's always a more honest way to deal with gender confusion than the chemical sterilization and surgical mutilation of healthy young bodies.
All right. That was a lot, but we're here now. So obviously both those those pairs of videos are related to public health. One was the recommendation about the myriad public health administration recommendations and times ends during the COVID crisis, and then a response to the prevailing narrative both in the mainstream media, in the government, and in medicine about quote unquote, is it quote and quote or quote unquote, whatever the fuck it is, transgender children. Happy Pride Month, by the way. There's too much to break down in all those videos, and I'm not going to go into the nuance of it. But what they prove overwhelmingly is that the administration is willing to lie to your face about your health. They're willing to lie to your fucking face. And again, willing, I shouldn't even say willing. They have to. This is, again, it's ingrained in the very being of whatever the fuck I want to call it, the administrative state, the deep state, the swamp, the government. You can call I mean, they're all fucking intertwined and entangled. It's ingrained in them. And they lied to your face about what were the best methods to keep yourself safe from COVID. They lied to your face about the health of your child, both physically and mentally. How many years has been the prevailing wisdom or the prevailing sentiment has been, well, if you have a transgender child, gender affirming care is the way to go. How long? Multiple years, for at least 4 years, 5 years, probably going back all the way to like 2015, so a decade. And just to fucking give the disclaimer, I don't give a flying fuck about trans if you're an adult. Oddly enough, I have people in my family. I have multiple people in my family who are trans, and they transitioned when they were adults, and that's their choice. Fine, whatever. Live and let live. Why the fuck would it be my business? But they fucking lied through their teeth about the well-being of children. They were prescribing puberty blockers and doing surgery and giving them hormones, not addressing what was clearly an underlying mental health crisis. And they ignore, and by the way, you might go, oh, well, we just found this out. No, they didn't just find this out. This shit was being studied in the 90s. They fucking lied to you. Oh, well, they just didn't know. They were negligent. They didn't know about COVID. It was a new pandemic. They were negligent. Well, even if they were negligent, then shut your fucking mouth if you know. And really don't mandate shit. So my question is, if they were willing to lie to you about how to protect yourself and the people around you and the people that you love during a pandemic, and if they were willing to lie to you about how to best provide your children both psychological and physical care, again, why wouldn't they lie about literally the fuck everything else? If your government is willing to lie through their fucking teeth into a camera about literally the foundation of the well-being of the citizens of the country, their fucking health and their children's health. Why wouldn't they lie about literally everything else? And it's not just recent history where we can sort of formulate these patterns of the government lying to the populace, right? That's not brand new. It's not like, Gulf of Tonkin wasn't a full flag, right? Right? It's not like there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that during the Cold War, we were arming Sandinistas in which, in return, we're getting crack from them, and then we flood the inner cities with crack. It's not like there's no evidence of that, right? All the work Gary Webb did, that's why Gary Webb really committed suicide. He just found out that his whole thing about the sea flooding the streets with crack, he just found out it was false. And he's like, oh, my life work, I can't live with myself. I spent years doing this, and it turns out that I'm wrong. I'm so sad. And that's why he killed himself. Right? It's not like we got the first Gulf War wrong, right? It's not like we got the invasion of Iraq wrong. And I'm going to say, to save some time, that we got it wrong. But I think if you look a little bit deeper, wrong wouldn't be the word. It was forward lies. It's not like they lied about Afghanistan. It's not like they lied about the necessity to bail out the big banks in 2008, even though Main Street banks were overwhelmingly solvent, right? It's not like they lied about the origins of the COVID-19 virus, or whether masks were effective, or whether there was a need to social distance, or whether there was going to have an effect on children by closing down schools for a year and a half. It's not like they're lying about, the effects of long COVID, right? Now, they wouldn't try to blame the effects of a understudied vaccine on long COVID. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't lie about the necessity of defending Ukraine, how it affects the well-being of Americans. They wouldn't lie to you about that. They wouldn't lie to you about inciting war in the Middle East in the interest of not even America, just in the blatant interest of Israel, particularly the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu. They wouldn't lie to you about that. They're not going to lie to you about that. They're not going to cover up a fucking genocide it's a weird word, but an atrocity. They wouldn't lie to you about that. They wouldn't cover anything up, right? They're not going to cover that up. They're not going to withhold 20 pages of documents that have to do with Israel and Saudi Arabia about the investigation into 9/11. They wouldn't do that, right? They wouldn't lie to you about maybe the importance of the individual vote, would they? No. They couldn't lie about that. It's your duty. No, that's impossible. They couldn't. There's no way they could masquerade a system that barely represents or symbolizes a democratic republic and convince through lies that the people who are living in that society are responsible for voting the new leader every year, even though things don't. They can't lie about it. They wouldn't. They're too moral, right? Oh, Nancy Pelosi's she's involved in insider trading? No way. No. Yeah, I understand her salary is $140,000 a year or $220,000, whatever the fuck it is, and she's worth $45 million. And I understand that there's a bit of a discrepancy there, but listen, she got a side hustle. She's probably selling shirts on fucking Etsy. She worked hard. At what point will there be enough people who can open up their eyes? And I'm not saying awaken yourself to like conspiracies. I'm not even asking for that. Although if you do go there, if you find yourself in that neighborhood, we'll have a discussion with you. But I'm not even asking that people do that. I'm saying just very basic intellectual inconsistencies, hypocritical statements. Hippocratic is the oath, which they did not uphold. States that seem to go against all logic and common sense. The idea that the government created a bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, where they could print money at will and spend it however they wanted because the American public has absolutely no control over it, and then make the American people responsible for the debt that's incurred by printing it. I guess the question is, at what point do we understand that unfortunately the American experiment as it evolved has failed? And I'm not one to say that it can't be rebuilt. I'm slightly pessimistic about how the rebound to prosperity would look, but I'm not saying it can't be rebuilt. But at what point do we go, okay, what we're doing now in pretty much every aspect of politics, policy, government, geopolitics, militarily, financially, culturally, at what point do we just finally get it off our chest that we understand that this fucking failed? And if you're not even ready to admit that, then just admit that you're being lied to at the very fucking least. What will it take? Because I just played you 4 videos that are proof positive that we have a governing apparatus that gives absolutely zero fucks about the well-being of the people they're supposed to serve. At what point, again, do we at the very least admit that this isn't working and they're lying? I'm not necessarily even asking people to start formulating solutions to the problem, because I don't know 100% what to do with this. But this is, at what point are we going to stop paying taxes to people that we know don't need our money because they can just print money from the Federal Reserve? Why the fuck are they taking money from us if they have unlimited spending power from a bank that prints them money? At what point are we going to stop voting the lesser of two evils? Everybody always wonders, like, well, there's so many brilliant minds in America, successful business owners and entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Why is the pool of options when it comes to political leadership always so shallow? It doesn't make any sense. It's because you're fucking voting every year. You buy into the process. You got to pick a lesser. You got to pay. It's your civic duty. You got to pick the lesser of two evils. Sure, Biden was installed by the DNC, right? They didn't fuck him over, Bernie Sanders over by basically forcing Elizabeth Warren to stay in the race while encouraging Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar and I don't even know who else, Kamala, to drop out so he could get their votes. They installed him. And then you go, well, that wasn't really the guy that I wanted. Because Democrats even don't like Biden. They're like, well, that's not really the guy that I wanted. You're still voting for him. Like, it was better than Trump. It's like, well, you don't have to vote for Trump. You know that. You don't have to vote for Trump either, but you're still voting for Biden. And by the way, it's the same on the right. A lot of people on the right and a lot of people who are libertarian who tend to, when push comes to shove, when it comes to choosing between the two political parties, end up going Republican. They're like, well, but Trump's better than Biden. You don't have to vote for him. It's like, well, if I don't, my vote's not going to matter. It's like, it's not going to matter anyway. And even if it did, that would almost be worse because then you're feeding into the political system that's lying to you. Right? If you have a friend who is an alcoholic and then you give them booze and then you get sad when they drink, it's like, well, yeah, you gave them the power to do that. You go, oh, well, no, I didn't give him the, I don't like booze. I just gave him some money. He needed some money, right? I paid my tax. I just gave him some money. Then after I gave him the tax, after I gave him my money, he went and bought booze, and that upsets me. It's like, well, okay. So what's the solution to that? Maybe stop giving him money? If every day you get up and you drive to a building and you walk into that building and you get hit in the face, and then you walk out and go, God, I fucking hate getting hit in the face. I hate it. It hurts. It's leaving marks. Right? My employer is asking what's going on. Well, I say, stop going to the building, right? Stop going to the building. It's the same thing with lies. It's like, well, are you sick of being lied to? Yes. Okay. Well, then instead of trying to replace the liars with people who you don't think will lie, even though that's been proven for over a century to not be the case, because clearly there's something tainted in the system itself, maybe don't listen to the things that they're saying to you. Maybe don't instill in them the power that they have over you right now. There's things you can do. We're going to wrap this up. But I think you can see a theme. And this theme does not just apply to COVID or the LGBTQ movement or war or the distribution of tax dollars or regulations, anything. It applies to everything that the government is involved in. Because what the government is involved in, so are special interests, and so are the administrative agencies. All fucking like 26 of them. Most people can name, what, 5? FBI, CIA, NSA, whatever, FDA, CDC. There's 26. We don't know who the fuck's doing things over there, and they're making policy. Maybe instead of trying to replace the monster with somebody who's not so much of a monster, right? Just stop feeding the monster. Let it starve. Starve the beast. But before we can do that, there's going to have to be an acceptance that we're being lied to. And I guess the reason I showed those videos was because I'm having trouble understanding the dragging of the feet of that acceptance, the delay, the latency of the acceptance or comprehension that a large portion, a majority of the things that are being spewed out of the government's mouth and political pundits and the mainstream media are just fucking blatant lies, and you just deal with it. It's like I don't know if people are just used to it. They're just callous. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around how people aren't a little bit more upset, or at the very least, a bit more skeptical. That's all. I gotta go. But I pose a question. What will it take for acceptance? What will it take for comprehension? Let alone, what will it take for action against it? That's a whole other thing. But what will it take for an understanding and acceptance that we're being fed lies that have an overt negative impact on American society and the individual? I don't know. I don't have the answer to the question. Perhaps you do. Go to the Patreon, folks. Give me a monthly recurring fee. I enjoy it when you do that. And go follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Come over to my house. Come over to my house and lay on my couch and we'll cuddle. And we'll watch No Country for Old Men. Sparkling water. And we'll laugh. And we'll cry. Perhaps we'll elicit other bodily fluids of each other. No guaranteeing that, though. But I'll guarantee it. You're going to like the way you look. Thank you, folks. I have a feeling I'm going to be back every week soon, but still, we're going to do every other week. But I have a feeling pretty soon we're going to be back. We're going to be doing weekly episodes. So if you have that to look forward to. If you're not a big fan of me, well, then you don't have to listen to everyone. Goodbye.